Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Weird and Strong podcast. I am your host, the weird, the one and only, Jeremy Grudsteiner. This week, we have a longtime collaborator of mine, a great friend, and just an all-around awesome dude. We've got Wade Stalboerger on the podcast. I've been on his podcast a handful of times already, so now it's great to have him on my podcast. He's a former educator, he's a musician, he's an entrepreneur, he's a little bit of everything, and he's a fantastic human being to get to know. So, without further ado, let's get weird. I'm here with Wade Stalboerger.
Stallenfocker for you guys out there, I tell you.
All right. He's got his alter ego on today.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. It was just a long time ago, and I just thought that was the funniest way to try to say my last name, and I just stick with it. So
just stick with it.
Yep.
There you go. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Doing
great.
See you again.
Had drumline this morning. I woke up way too early. I don't know why. It's just, I think it's that cycle coming out of the weekend where I sit there and play all these shows, and then you get home at weird times in the morning and whatever else, and yeah, then you're trying to flip your schedule back over. And next thing you know, I'm waking up 4 a.m. for no reason whatsoever. And then my brain starts going, and then yeah, I'm doomed for the day. I'm up until I go back to bed. So,
well, there we go. Off being productive, off making things happen.
I like to think productive, but
yeah, you're doing stuff, so that's what matters, right?
Stuffs.
Yeah. As we start everybody on the Weird and Strong podcast, I've got a weird question for you. Are you
good? Weird ones.
Yeah.
What do you got? Hit me.
So this one's going to make you think a little bit.
Uh-oh.
At least that's the hope. Is why do we create art?
Why do we create art?
Yeah.
Well, that is a question that actually keeps getting brought up all the time, just being in the public sphere with academics and all that. There's always a reasoning, and they always have that question is, why do we keep your class? Why do we do this? Why do we need the arts? And basically, the most academic thing you can say, and everyone says this, is that it helps exercise your mind. You can take all these things that you learned from every other aspect in school, and you can combine it together in the art room, as in you can use different colors or different textures or different sounds, or all that happy fun stuff. But in the very end, it's besides doing all that for you, which granted, yeah, it does exercise the brain quite a bit, because you have to figure out something and not regurgitate something, is that you I lost my train of thought on that whole side, is that instead of regurgitating everything on that, is that then you make something that actually says something back to yourself, and something you can feel proud of, or you can feel that maybe this needs improvement, but it's something that you developed on your own. So it's not somebody else's, unless you're getting the grade on it, and not somebody else's depiction of what you think is going to be good or what you think should be this. Granted, there's always guidelines out there. There's always ways to become better at what you do and all that, but who actually decides what is good? Mm-hmm. And you're bringing me into this thing already. So it's like, what is good? And then we sit there and look at like A equals has to equal 440. But then if you look at a xylophone and it starts at 442, why do they do that? So is A 440 good? Is that the benchmark that you want to go for? Maybe. But maybe you think A sounds better at 338 megahertz. Am I saying that right? Is it megahertz? I think so.
Or hertz.
Yeah. So it brings it down to that. But that thing brings me into how I always venture into things. And I'm always thinking on the practical side. It's like, why is this here? Why are we doing this in the first place? And this is a perfect question to get into. So it's like, in schooling, why do you have that? Why is there an arts type place that you can go to? Well, in all essence, where else are you going to get something like that? Unless you take that class, but there again, you're back in school again. So you're learning from somebody else. And it's that's the fun part about school, is that it's an environment for you to explore different areas as you may be. Again, and I'm not in academia. I really don't. We'll get into that later. I don't see a lot of value in higher education type stuff, but I do see that if you have that, you got that play space to go around, and you're able to, at least look at things that may be part of something that you can do well, or be something that you don't do well, or maybe something that you thought would be really cool and then you realized it doesn't, that's the safe place that you can go to and at least be able to explore all that type of things.
Mm-hmm.
But art in itself, where does the value come from? And that's a real thing, because everybody and the whole world runs off of money. And that's basically how I step into things in the first place, is like, how is this actually going to maintain? How is this going to be something that I can sustain myself with? And why is it here in the first place? Who is actually doing this, and who is making the entire industry? Who is actually making money with this, that it actually becomes something? And so if you look at the art, what kind of arts do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the musical arts? Or you want to talk about just like visual?
Anything. It can be anything. So I think a deeper question is why do we as humans gravitate towards something like art, whether it's music, visual, or otherwise, performance?
Self-satisfaction. That's what I think. Because when you look at a picture, like you come into my house and they got that stupid quote sitting right up there with Steve Jobs, "Stay hungry, stay," whatever. I can't remember the quote right now, but it says something to me. That's why it's up there. I mean, it's just, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." Man, how did I screw that up? And he said that in, it was one of his big speeches that he has when he was doing, it was some California school. He was given the,
like Caltech.
I don't think it was Caltech.
UCLA, Stanford.
I think it was Stanford.
Berkeley.
I think it was Stanford. It might be Berkeley.
Yeah.
But he was given the speech, and that was like his big ending thing. And that spoke to me, even though he stole that from apparently like a magazine that was from the 60s that did sci-fi or whatever else. But so that's what I use, and that's what I consider art, and then it's just plain letters, and that's what it is. Or else, you look at, you got that photo of the flute sitting across some piano keys, and that might speak to someone else like, oh, I feel like I'm more musical, or that says something about me, and I'm basically exposing it to other people. Yeah. So to me, it's just more about self-satisfaction. Why does it make me feel good being able to look at it or listen to it? And that can bring you into music on that, is that I was the teenage angst of all angst. I'm watching my son right now and how angry he is all the time. And I'm thinking, was that me? Was I really that bad?
We have a saying around some of the places some of the communities that I hang around with, is that history doesn't necessarily always repeat itself, but it sure as shit rhymes.
Yeah. It does. And I really have a feeling, because I meet people now that I haven't seen in 20 years and everything else, and they I don't say they hold back, but you can feel that they're not comfortable around me. And I just wonder if I was just that big of an asshole that I push people away, which I thought were, really, well, good acquaintances, not friends. I mean, didn't hang out on dinner and all that, but so I'm watching that, but in those days, like the relief and the satisfaction I got was listening to heavy metal music, screaming along, hanging out or blasting Pantera at the top of your lungs, that type of stuff. That, I don't know. And is that an art form to some people? No. To some other people like myself, I think that saved my life multiple times, just because it was just a way to let all that angst out for absolutely no reason out the car window while you're cruising down Broadway or whatever heck you were doing at the time. Now, so, and then now, the music that I listen to is way more mellow, way more. I look for like groove now. I just want to sit back and just like, reggae and ska and all that. Ska gets a little bit too peppy, but playing it, yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but I just like the things that just kind of let me just sit back and relax. The big stereo upstairs, I can hear all the frequencies going on, and it's not just putting on the old headphones from what you got from Sears or whatever else, and just cranking it up to how high it can go, and then pushing everything up on the faders, whatever else you had on there.
All the EQ, all the way.
Exactly. So if it hurt, it was good,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
If it's too loud, you're too old.
Yeah. I used to say that all the time. Now, Now, yeah, especially doing the drumline thing. Been doing that for too long, and like today, I made some kids stop practicing. Even though, why would you do that? And I was like, it's break time. It's time for quiet. You can use your fingers. That thing, just to give yourself that break, because you get to the point of exhaustion, at least.
Well, your ears also get exhausted as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be had with that.
But that brings back to why is that there? How did that get made in the first place? Well, obviously, there's a market for something like that. Like, is there a market for that sign I have upstairs? Well, obviously, I got that off eBay. I paid $100 for that stupid thing. Didn't even come in very nice. It was even kind of wrinkled and everything else. I complained about it. But, there are people out there that find value in that, and then they're willing to give up a certain amount, and especially, and again, the market ideas, how many, and then, supply issue and all that other fun stuff. But it's just to the point is like, who would actually purchase, or who would want to give you some of their personal value, personal money, in order for you to perform for them or do something for them or whatever else that'll make them feel better. And not in a sexual way, Jeremy. I know where you're going.
Hey.
No, he does not do that at all.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously speaks to something primal in us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But what is that? I really have no idea. But to me, it's just like, I was thinking about this podcast and actually thinking about this kind of scenario as I was going along there, and I was just looking at things and going through what my mindset is on there. Is like street signs. Why do we have street signs? It's like, well, it keeps order, but who's buying the street signs? Oh, so that'd be coming from the government. Well, where does the government get their money from? That gets it from us. Okay, so why are we giving money to the government? So the government will put up the street signs in order to keep us safer. And then you just start seeing how the circular work it does on there. And then you start seeing like some of the more ludicrous things is like, why do we need to have all these cameras and stuff up on again, this is my opinion on all these signs and stuff. And that's just to make sure that if something happens, then we have a visual edit of it. And to me, I don't know, I'm just more private than that. It's just that ever since the beginning of time, we didn't have to sit there and record each other constantly in order to make sure that things were right. It's just that people have eyes and ears and all that other fun stuff. But
trying to create the most amount of certainty in an uncertain world.
Well, yeah, you got that. But even that, can you call that certain? Do they actually turn them on? And I worked at I shouldn't say this, but I worked at a place that had security cameras, and I can guarantee you 90 to 95% of the time, those things weren't on.
Yeah, many times
sat there
in a lot of places.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was
like I've seen.
Is it a deterrent? Maybe. Does it even know people know that they're there? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
awesome. Well, that was a great answer to a deep question.
A deep question.
You started to bring some of the components of your background and the things that you do in the world. And so I'm going to turn it over to you to start to talk about what makes Wade weird. What are the ways that you show up unconventionally in the world?
Unconventionally is because I like to go down the path that no one's there. As in drumline. Who the heck does drumline? Who's actually pushed that for the life of me? Now, granted, is it something that I fell into at one point, and I must have been talented at it. People kept giving me accolades for it and everything else. I still don't see the talent, but that's me. And is something that I just enjoyed doing. But nobody in the area does any of this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And to me, the value is that I think I got a great work ethic out of it. Besides my, father and parents and everything else, you watch that and you follow that along. But that was something that if you didn't perform, well, it wasn't going to be very good. And what I mean by performing is that you actually had to play your instrument in order to make sure that a product was actually sent out to the world. Because I know we can talk a lot about how you can fake it, backing tracks and all that other fun stuff, and you can pretend that you're doing things, but with that, you cannot. And you had to sit there and be in conjunction with the person next to you. And I'm going to get into the ethereal and all that, but I stayed with that. Why? I still don't know to this day. I went into many band directors' rooms and talked to them about, because we started this drumline a million years ago. It was a nonprofit thing, and we were trying to recruit kids out of their band programs in the area. And there's been many times that we got cursed out about bringing those kids in, and we're going to mess them up and all this other fun stuff. And I kept wondering why they would think something like that. And I still, if you look back into the 60s and things, and they had just a certain way they do things. And I know even for students that I've had, they went back to their band rooms and they thought that playing marching style was how you're supposed to play in the concert room. And that's absolutely incorrect. So I had to correct them on that too. So I can understand that, but the whole idea was that we just kept getting pushed down and pushed away, and it was a real fight to try to get the market share out of that, just with kids and getting interest with all of it. And we stuck with it, and I still stick with it to this day. I'm over at Morehead High now, working with their line and doing this winter drum line thing. And I will have to say that just being a part of the marching arts over there, I've actually getting paid the most I've ever gotten paid doing drumline anywhere. But I still give out a lot of my time, a lot of my assets and everything else in order to decorate the drums. I write the music. The whole Winterline thing there wasn't even in the contract. That's just me wanting to be able to expand what's going on, me giving back part of something that I enjoyed when I was younger. So there again, comes back to the arts again. If it's meant something to me, it spoke to me, and I think it speaks out. And then to me, the whole idea is it's really militaristic, but it has that sound side to it. So now you're getting that work ethic, you're learning how to work with others. And then while you're working with others, you can never be good enough. That's the one thing, is that as soon as you accomplish a certain goal, there's another one waiting for you right on the other side. And that just keeps you pushing forward and forward. And then to me, it's just a great journey to be on as well. And then when you actually get the applause or the cheers or whatever else, I got a video of that from last year to even from the crowds and everything else. And then you just realize that all that work, all that time, all that effort that you put into is being enjoyed by somebody else. And then just, it brings it back manyfold. But there again, it's just that where can something like this survive? Why is that so valuable? Well, if you think about it, if you have these in your academia type places, or you have other places, obviously you're not going to take a bunch of kids and drums and you're going to walk over to the mall and people are going to throw money at your feet. No, probably not. You're not going to book a gig over at the Windbreak with your drum line that's going to play for 15 minutes, maybe if you're lucky. And they want 3 hours worth of stuff, and it won't be anything anyone recognizes, because usually it's all custom made and whatever else. There's
technical, and it's the precision and the components of it as its own style and entity.
Exactly, where only other drumline people and or aficionados would understand or want to understand what's going on, kind of like classical music in another basic sense, And so you're not going to make money with it that way. But if you have it in that playground of the academia, where, you get all the funding from taxes, and well, not all of it, but, taxes and fundraising and doing all the other fun stuff, the people in charge can make a little bit, and the kids already have to be there. So, and it gives them something back at the very end. And again, it brings on, I think, the best in people, and then society should, in whole, be able to.
There's a more benefit.
Be a lot more beneficial for society in whole.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing about, the core of this of your vocation as a drumline instructor and drumline aficionado, is that it helps to, in what it distilled in you was a sense of discipline, a sense of curiosity, a sense of creativity, and that can get brought forward to the people who are involved, or the kids that are involved with this, and that becomes a playground for real life. Exactly. Or a training ground.
It's hanging out in the arts type of idea. Yeah. Exactly. So And it's something that no one else does in the area. It was like, at one point I thought I was going to be an auto mechanic. That was really what I always thought. It was just, I love cars. I love doing things with my hands. I like seeing things run, like seeing things that didn't work before. And then I just walked in, did something, and it started working again. And of course, there's a lot of value in that because I know you've seen my house, but all I try to do on my off time is repair electronics now. Why? Because it's either cooler in the basement or it's warmer in the basement out in the garage. Even though I do have my Mustang out in the garage, it's still waiting for me. I feel bad about it. I got it. Yeah, I got it as a full unit. Didn't run, and I'm like, I know how to get this thing running. The one I restored when I was in high school is basically the exact same thing that's out there. I know every little nook and cranny in that thing. I just got to get out and do it. But again, it's either too hot or it's too cold, or I only have 10 minutes to put out there, and it's probably going to take an hour and a half to actually get done when I get done. Yeah. I'm giving myself excuses. Sorry.
Talking yourself out of it.
Yeah, pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So I like doing the electronics and getting things working again and all that. And that's where I thought I was going to be. And then at some point, and I don't even know what point this would be other than it was my mother was fighting cancer, and it just, the excuse I gave myself for what or how I deviated from that life was that I was one of the top guys in the auto mechanics room, and then I was one of the top guys doing the marching band stuff and or percussion stuff. Yeah. And it was just like, you can get more women with the music than I will, hanging on under a hood of a car. Is that true or not? I'm seriously doubting that, but that was what my mindset was at the time. And so I just went the musical route, and I had no idea what I was getting into at the time. I was just, I want to play music. I want to perform music. And I wasn't really thinking about teaching it, but that's something that comes into play after a while again.
Yeah.
But totally. There again, it's just looking at something and it's like, where's the value here? What value is this going to be for me? And at that point, that was, adolescence. All you're thinking about was the chicks.
Yeah, and looking.
I was really thinking about the
lifestyle or the fun or the whatever comes with whatever warped version of a musician you had in your head. Exactly, and it's like, oh, now you got to pay for a house and you want to retire one day and all that. You don't think about that. Whereas I'm auto mechanic, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but that stuff's kind of just baked into the cake. It's just that's right there. Where it's part of the system. Yeah, exactly. In that you're not necessarily creating something for yourself as an auto mechanic unless you start your own shop and do that thing. But the likelihood that you're going to be fixing cars when you go down that route is pretty low in the future. Yes. Versus as a musician, you have that ability to completely craft and create your reality of whatever you want it to be. Precisely. I've been saying these past few years have probably been the best I've ever had, and that's just because we're playing in a band that actually can pay the bills. Not all of them, but to the majority, where I don't have to have a full-time position someplace, and I have all this extra free time to do what I think is more valuable, at least for my time, being on this earth at least. And I'm really, really, really enjoying that. And I know, Mr. Grinsteiner, we invited you along on that journey too, so at some point, hopefully that really takes off. Yeah. I'm not going to say sometime. It will really take off. Yeah. In thinking about that for yourself, you mentioned that this is something a little bit new for you. What was the path like to finding that freedom for yourself? What was that like for you? Is that something that you've always craved, or is it something that you stumbled across over time? I think I've always craved it, because that's exactly what I want to do. I love performing. I like getting out in front of the crowd and all that, and I got that from doing the marching band stuff. I mean, when I was growing up, there was a few places in town where you could play. We did, and in this exact room that I'm sitting in right now talking to everybody, is we played a lot of music. A lot of music was played in this room by itself. Me on a drum set and other people doing their thing. Even on guitar, I was noodling around with in high school. Never was that good at it, but it was fun to crank up the amps and let her go. But I always
craved that. And then when I went to school, the first school I went to was MSUM. Why? Because it was Rock U. My coach was there. They had all this guitar stuff. He actually had a class. At least they said it was a string ensemble. And then that string ensemble, you played, I think it was 45 minutes of cover tunes, and you get college credit. And I thought that was crazy and great at the same time. But then I realized when I was there that I don't know what I was looking for. Is that drum set was fun for me, but it wasn't something I ever thought of as, something you went and studied. I just figured it was something that you just did. And then, you played along to things. So I was studying all the other academia type thing, the marimba with the four mallets and the timpani. Well, I wanted to get into timpani on there. And then, concert snare drumming, hitting crash cymbals correctly, and the triangle, and everything's got its own little technique.
All
blah,
the fun
blah, blah.
toys.
Yeah, exactly. But there's me getting off on things. But then I was there under music industry. So I wasn't thinking about being Mr. Holland. I wasn't going to do Mr. Holland's Opus. That wasn't my idea at all. I just wanted to get out and perform. And for some reason, again, the warped idea and warped thinking that you have is that, to me, was where do you find worth? And it was the college degree makes you worth more, right? So that's how you can get into something that's as ethereal as music and be able to actually get paid for, is because someone threw paper on you and now you're worth this much. So you're not just some kid coming out and bucket drumming in front of the target field and getting people throwing money at you. No, I'm going to go out and I'm going to learn all these really fantastic fun formality on 5-octave marimbas and and everyone's going to love it, and then I'm just going to get a lot of money because I'll be so good at it. And then you realize that good and financial future doesn't actually correlate. It helps. It really does help, but it doesn't mean that you're actually going to get something out of it. So I was thinking that I wasn't gaining enough there, and then I took off down to North Texas and I transferred out to there, and they didn't have a music industry thing. They had music education, which I took, or at least I said I was majoring in that. So I wasn't doing percussion performance because I didn't, even to this day, I still don't understand how you give a degree in percussion performance. That I know we always make the jokes like, what's more worthless than a percussion performance degree? And that's not getting your percussion performance degree. Yeah. But it's like, what do you do with that? I mean,
damned if you do, damned if you don't type of a scenario.
So then it was the education thing. I think I took one ed class there while I was there. The lady, she probably said it to everybody, but at the time it really took me. They just asked how to spell my last name, and I broke it down in the chunks, and she's like, "Oh, you must be an educator." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Most people won't take little chunks and then have it spelled out for people. They just say it all at once." And I was like, I never thought of it that way. And that just stuck in my craw ever since then. It was like how I'd sit there and just, everything has to have meaning, you have to be able to explain yourself and why you're doing something. And again, that comes back to that worth idea, is just, why am I doing this? Where's the worth at? And then how can you make it more efficient? And then that's where I think worth becomes a lot more. Is that how efficient can you be with things? And the crazy part about me is in the mornings, that's where I try to be the most efficient. Doesn't you get up and you realize that there is so much maintenance you have to do for the human body. It's just crazy if you actually stop and think about it, which I have way too much, is that you get up in the morning and then you have to use the bathroom. Well, while using the bathroom, can you brush your teeth at the same time? Maybe, or maybe you get the coffee maker going while you jump in the shower. So now you got two things going at the same time. And then can you do all your shaving and stuff while you're in the shower? Again, efficiency. Can I turn this 10-minute process into 5 minutes? And I always basically race myself every morning trying to figure out how to do one last thing, because then you get out and all of a sudden you got to put all this powders, and then just even being a woman to have to put on all that war paint and stuff. Oh my gosh, how much time we just spend just getting ourselves presentable for the rest of humanity. What's that really worth? I mean, why do we have to go that far with it? And then what can we do to make that less painful? Or it's kind of like eating generic cereal instead of the name brand stuff. Is it going to get me the same result? Maybe. Is it going to be as, pleasurable? I don't know, but it doesn't give you the same result. Yeah. So, so that's me in the mornings, and then all day, all I'm thinking about is what can I do? If I do something, I want to be able to do something else at the exact same time in order just to try to combine time together, in the hopes and dream that at the end of the night I can just sit there and think about nothing, and that's why I wake up at 4 a.m.
to be able to maximize your day.
I don't know. As I wake up and then my brain just starts going, and I know I just need some background noise to probably kind of keep me thinking about something, or not thinking about something else, but just to distract me or distract my mind. But I'll start thinking about like what needs to get done today. And then I'm like, well, the coffee's out in the kitchen. So if I get the coffee going, I can go get the computer started, and then we get this download going. And there's where the efficiencies start. And then, again, are you being productive? I don't know. But
how much, knowing that, we've known each other for a long time at this point, and I know that you always have something going on, always have something in your back pocket, or the next thing ready to go.
There's a space on my plate. It's got to get filled with something. Yep.
Yeah.
So
how often have you been able to take that space and just let it be? How often have you been able to slow down in that process?
See, that's the real good question. I think that comes from just having kids.
Oh, sure.
Because I know they always say that, that first day you have a child, there's something that just turns, and they're not lying. And
especially,
I don't think you have a child yet there,
no.
Grinch there, but it is what it is. And you realize, to me at that point, I was pursuing, as I knew when we were pregnant, that I had 9 months basically to get all that I wanted to get done with the band up and running. So it was sufficient enough in order to, maintain everything. But I also knew that I had to make sure that I kept my side of the bargain and make sure everyone was taken care of. What academia male roles that I don't know pertain much more. But I'm not going to go there. I got a lot of opinions on that side. But and when that happened, then all of a sudden I have the 9-to-5 job, has all the benefits, it barely pays the bills, but it gets everyone by. I can get another side gig if I need to.
There's the safety and the security and the predictability of it.
Exactly. And I'm home every night, and then I was able to be around my children. And with that being said, that was probably the slowest part of my life, and the slowest and fastest. I know Bill Burr makes a big thing about that, how all of a sudden you have kids and you go into that bubble, and then you come out and you're dropping the needle on the old platter there, and you think that's still cool, and it's not, because it's 20 years too old.
And you thought for you it was 5 minutes ago?
That's exactly what it feels like. So, and the real funny part about that was not just the music side of it, but it was I guess it would be the music side. I want to correlate that in the society somehow, but it's not. And society has changed so much since that, but you don't notice that because it's a gradual change while you're going along. But so I had all this time that I spent with the kids as much as I possibly could, and then it got to a point where I need to go back to school. I need to actually. The kids are old enough that they're kind of self-sufficient, to the point where it's just like they can use the bathroom, they can feed themselves, all that fun stuff. So they didn't need to have so much hands-on. And I need to get back to school. I need to get back to what I was doing, because at that time, again, it's all drumline related. The thing that keeps me going around here, as I was teaching or instructing NDSU's drumline at the time, and that was 2001, I dare to say, somewhere in there. And that lasted for almost 10 years, somewhere in there. It was on and off at points too, because I have, there's political pressures everywhere, and in the household, it got a little testy sometimes, just going off and doing that. And it didn't pay very much, but it satisfied me. It kept me wanting more, and kept me going. And so I was doing that. And then at one point while I was doing that, I'm like, this is dumb. Why don't I go back, get my degree, and then I can get at least paid for doing this stuff like proper, instead of, here's a little stipend on the side. Thank you for your help. And
turn it to the actual career.
Exactly.
So was that sense of fulfillment what led you away from that normal 9 to 5 style or lifestyle?
Yes, big time. Big time. 'Cause that lasted about 10 years, that 9 to 5 style. And I remember we had some friends would come by, and, we do little jam sessions, but nothing like what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. And that was, literally maybe once, twice a year. It was, very, very few and far away. And I was like, yeah, you have a drum set and you have all that fun stuff in the basement, but you never played it, you never touched it, you never looked at it. Mm-hmm. You just tried to stay on task and sit there and figure out how you can get the kids' bed upgraded so you can paint the rooms, something like that. Mm-hmm. So that was that whole fulfillment. And then it went back to school, and then life got in the way once again. But now I'm on the other side of that. I don't want to talk about that whole scenario. That's when I met you, is when all that was coming into play.
Yeah. And so thinking about this from a perspective of other musicians that may be listening, how much, for you in making that transition from normal 9 to 5.
This is a great question. I can make a dissertation on this.
What parts of, what were the things that you really struggled with in going that route, and what part did your belief about yourself come into play as you made that decision? You started to go down that path.
Oh, this is the thing, is that when I made that decision, I needed to go back. I had to turn around and then just look at what was created, that I created, the family, the household, the cars, pets, whatever was going on. And how could that be sustained while I was doing something that literally cost money for me to go do, not actually making any money once again. Mm-hmm. So how do we make that happen? And then you have to turn to your spouse at that time. And you have to figure out what your spouse could possibly do and how to make that happen. And it got down to this. And we had our little band meeting a couple of days ago, just about how you can use different entities for tax and all that other fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And I really delved hard into how money works and what you need to do and how to get all that working for you. And after realizing a lot of things, you look at the world way different now. And mm-hmm. I'll get into that in a bit. But I realized that one of the main assets is probably the easiest thing to deal with is real estate. And I really love the idea of real estate, mainly because it's tangible. You can put your hands on it. You can fix it. You can make it worth less. You can make it worth more. I mean, there's a whole lot of aspects. And you can take loans out for it. You don't even need your own cash. So I had my house that the spouse at the time didn't even believe that I could pull off buying. And then I got that. And then while we were doing that, I started taking classes on real estate investing and all that fun mm-hmm. stuff. A lot of people call it a scam. I don't know. I made my money back plus, and if things didn't happen the way they happened in my life, I'd be sitting pretty good right now, but whatever. And
sitting
so
better. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I started purchasing different places. I got the house that I'm in right now. My dad sold it to me, and then we started renting out the first one. We were about to buy another one up in Fargo North, and then I found out some things, but so we barely missed out on that. And then it was, okay, well, now we have this asset's making us cash, and then the asset I'm sitting in right now, my house, could make us some cash. But what do we need to do in order for that to work? And lo and behold, their parents lived in Ada, and Ada, Minnesota is basically a dying town. I know that's personal opinion, but they have a school there and they have a hospital there, and that does hold things together. But there's a lot of places that are just abandoned. People just don't live there, and the houses just stay empty.
Typical small town, middle America story of the flock towards larger cities or the flock towards larger towns.
Exactly,
because that's where the jobs are.
Exciting. Yeah, but now it's going to change. I'll talk about that. That's a whole different aspect. But so there was this place right next to her spouse's mother's place, and it was literally $10,000 for the house. and the lot. There's 2 lots, and it's just huge. The house is kind of small, but yeah, we're spending a lot of time next door. Yeah, so we have a place to go. And the monies we made out of rents and all that, easily pay for that, plus, whatever we need to kind of keep the kids maintained and everything else. And then there's a school was there and everything. The only thing that really kind of hurt for that idea was that I had my son and daughter were both in hockey at the time, and obviously they didn't have a hockey team or anything going on up there.
Well, hockey is just expensive regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And
in time and money.
But it was so much fun watching them just starting to excel with it and everything else. We got stories behind that, but it's just satisfying for myself again watching that. It's another art form if you think about it. Sports. Oh yes, pageantry on the ice. But yeah. So we got that and bought that place. So now I own 3 different places, and that's and this is all just because I'm trying to figure out how to get out and be able to make money just making music. And again, where I thought that I needed to go back and go into academia, and academia again will give me that piece of paper that'll make me worth something to somebody that I can sustain everything with. Again, Mr. Holland's Opus, the one I've talked about that I didn't want to be, but that's where I was trying to head into. And got that arranged, and this took a good 3-4 years, and then being able to get all of our bills down to the point where she's working as a waitress can basically afford all of our bills, and with all that passive income coming in from the rental properties at the same time. And that's finally when I was able to jump ship. And I still remember the day that I did. Are you scared when you're jumping ship? Oh yeah. You're taking the cables off and just hoping that you don't fall to your death. But I remember that day precisely because I put in my 2 weeks, and they're like, "Are you sure? Because you can't rescind this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got to make this happen." And it was on a Friday. Was it a Friday or Monday? Okay, so I don't remember which day it was, but I remember which day that drumline camp at NDSU had just started full days, and I walk in. It was about 11:30 in the morning. 11:30 in the morning, and my old boss at that time, who's now deceased, bless you, Ken, but walks into the shop, and he's like, "Why are you here?" I was like, "It's my last day." He's like, "Get the hell out of here!" I was like, just gave me the old signal. Yep. And Arby's had the 5 for $5 that day. Stopped at Arby's, got my 5 roast beefs, and then head on out to NDSU, strapped on a drum, and I don't say the rest is history, but that's where it all started. So basically, I was so enamored with the idea that I had to make myself so good in order to be worth something to somebody that I would literally get there at 6 a.m. and I'd get home around 11 o'clock every night because I'd spend all that time in the percussion studio practicing whatever things that I could do in order to make myself that good. Now, looking back again, is that time is the best teacher that you have. Was that all worth it? Maybe. Did I get to meet people like you? Yeah, that was awesome. That was worth it right there. But learning all this fancy percussion-y things and getting struggling just to get out and get that piece of paper in order so you can go out and be an educator in academia, and then realizing when you get to academia that isn't exactly what you knew was going to be a struggle, but it wasn't what you were used to. Where I was when I was a clinician and I went and taught places, I was always, I won't say like the big man on campus, but I was.
You have some prestige that you're bringing forward.
Yeah,
you have some notoriety.
And the kids worked with that, and I was, if I said something, it was gospel basically, and that'll work with that. You get into the public sector, where all of a sudden you're in there, and half the kids don't want to be there because their parents making them, blah blah, the old stories and whatever else, and all of a sudden all they're doing is questioning everything that you do, and you're wondering what happened. Why is everyone questioning me? And this is just how we do things. Like, no, the old one didn't do it that way. Like, oh, what'd they do? And then they say something like they had no idea how they did it, but it wasn't this way. And you're like, well, okay, we're going to do it this way. And it takes time to get all that transitional type stuff going, but it takes so much energy. And you just start feeling like you're spinning your wheels once again, because it's like you want this to be fulfilling for yourself, and it's not. It's just more or less you felt like you're just babysitting and hoping to make it through the day. And that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be performing. I wanted to show people how to perform and how to make it great for them.
Yeah. And so one of the things I'm hearing in that is that you were looking for that validation or that self-worth through this piece of paper or through the position.
Exactly.
And the reality was that you had it all to begin with.
Yeah.
Already.
Precisely. And it was already all there.
was there a moment that really clicked for you?
Oh, that clicked for me the day I got my first paycheck for playing in a cover band.
Okay.
It's like, oh wait, because on my last full-time position, after all said and done, my paychecks I was walking home with was $400. That was twice a month. That's $800 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, that doesn't pay for the house.
No,
that might pay for the car and the travel expense. Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I even said something like that out loud in one of the administrator's office, and I probably shouldn't have. But that's the way it was. Yep, and the pension wasn't there. I was denied was not the health benefits. Health benefits are terrible. It was I wasn't bringing home enough to make the what do they call it, the minimum payment,
sure,
whatever,
for the health plan.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I could have gave them every cent that I got, and it still wouldn't have gotten to the point where it actually covers them. So I had that. Oh, what else? It was just terrible money wise, and then all of a sudden, I'm out of there. I find my way into this country cover band. No, Irish whiskey. No, take it as what you may. And they played Red Dirt. I'm getting into the weeds on all that, but it was just a country cover band. It's not the greatest musicians in the world, not anything else, but they had work, and we'd play, and all of a sudden I'm making $100 a night. So that's $200 on the weekend usually. You do the math. Oh, I just have to go play, and I make the same amount of money that I do if I have to sit there and be at work for 14 hours a day, and everyone doesn't appreciate me at all, and all I'm doing is getting angry with everyone, and they're getting angry with me. It just didn't make sense. Well, that just made sense to me, and I was just like, why did I spend all my time doing that? Why didn't I just jump this way in the first place? And I think the whole idea was that I was trying to do what society thinks that you should do.
Pressure of what we
do. What you think is good, and you sit there and you look and you think that all these doctoral people and these big time conductors and everything else outside of the sphere of academia, could anyone name any one of these people? No, they can't. But that's where they live, because that's where all the money's coming from, and the money's just coming from people like us who are just paying their taxes, and they're going in there, or else them raising all the prices on all the fees and everything else to go to college these days, and all the banks just willing to give all these kids all that money. And again, I sound like an old timer on all that, but it's just
there's an experience though, or lessons that we've had to learn in doing that, in taking that path.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the end of that path, and at least not past, I'm saying past high school and the whole college thing, is that the only place that you're actually worth anymore is in college again. So you have to find your way back in. Yeah. And I know a lot of music students that, they bartend, they drive taxi, they do all sorts of fun stuff out there. But not a lot of them actually take what that education was that they spent all that money and time on and did anything with it. And that's where I get into my whole argument against why does that exist in academia, or if it does exist in there, why don't they show you a real world scenario and not just like, oh, check out this fantastic new composer. They got 14 over 8, and then it goes into 3 and then 1, and it just does all this random weird stuff. And, you have to have the the highest caliber of musicians in order to make this happen, and only these bands can play this, and there's only two people that want to listen to it, the composer and the guy that's conducting. So, I don't understand why that I shouldn't say why it has to exist. I do understand why NASA's there. NASA's there in order to make all the geeks and everyone else and all the scientists keep striving to get to that one place that they think they can be a rock star, and that'd be NASA. It's kind of like what I say, jazz bands in the academia. Why do we have all these jazz bands? Well, that's the fun band to be in. And now there's rock bands coming out, and in schools now and everything else. And I really applaud that, because I've been talking about that for quite some time, is that something like that should happen. Now, here's the real bummer about it. Again, it's like jazz bands. When the jazz bands first came in to place in academia, they literally couldn't call it jazz band. They had to call it stage band, because jazz was considered something that was satanic, immoral, and all that other fun stuff. So
all the whitewashed, because it was counterculture. It was different. Yep. Yeah, there was a threat. It was a threat to the existing ivory tower types.
Exactly. So they had,
and that's what's really cool, is that because if you're not teaching popular music, or if you're not consuming popular music in these programs, what are you actually doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's lessons that you can learn from the past and learn from different styles, and it's like painters being able to get a wide palette of colors. Instead of only painting in 3 colors, you get to paint in 100 colors. Interesting component of what you're talking about in this, and this is something that I wish that people in the academic world would talk more about, especially in the arts of music, theater, dance, visual arts, and things like that, is that, especially in music, I got asked this a lot when I was in job interviews in the tech world. They're like, well, you're interviewing to become a full stack engineer. You have a degree, or you have training in music. What makes you think that you're the right fit for this? And I would say is that what music teaches you, and what learning this, especially at a university level, is that it teaches you to be self-sufficient, because you are required to know your parts. You're required to do your work. And now you have to learn how to apply that work with everybody else.
Moss Eisley's. Yep, I've been asked that question multiple times myself. Yeah. Didn't quite go along with that direction. That's a good one too. I just talked about just basically you have to be creative enough to be able to use your hands in order to do a lot of problem solving on your own.
And that's a big part of it too. Well, but you're also problem solving as a group.
Yep.
Is okay. Something's not happening, but you also have to listen.
No.
The communication aspects of this.
Here we go. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So people should be looking to hire music majors or people who have this training more so than otherwise, because there's so much more value there than is on the surface.
I agree with that. Yeah. My whole rampage was just about how they kind of let you down with the whole music side, is that unless you're just basic academia and you're just looking at the next to Kelly or the next whatever, I'm talking band people,
whatever names.
Yeah. And they produce enough where it sustains them. Is that when you leave, you don't know what to do with that. You're like, oh, I can play my instrument now at a high level that marketability wise, nobody really wants, unless you're one of the top, 1% in the world. And then it's basically half the time you do is just you do clinics. You go in, you show them your chops, show them what you can do. Then you try to explain to them how you got there, and everyone has the same story. I just lived in the practice room. All right. Well, then what do you do past that? Oh, no, I got a sponsorship. And then, and then they just fly me around. I do these.
Teach lessons. I do some solo gigs. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot there. Since we're coming up on the end of our time for today.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, we've got a hard time box today. Any last thoughts that you want to share with the viewers, or anything that you want to bring forward and let the listeners be aware of, things that you want to promote?
Well, I can do all that too. I was going to finish my idea on academia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that as soon as you get done with that, it's like, what do you do with it? So why don't they give you marketing? Why don't they give you business? Why don't they give you like just ways of how you can actually make that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of just, well, okay, you're good, and you did your recital, and goodbye. You know, and the only time you hear from them again is, can you hand us some money because the foundation needs more. That. It'd be a little bit better if they actually set you up for what society is like and not being 10 years behind, which they normally are. That's about what I get into about these rock bands that are all starting to pop up now in junior highs and high schools. They're out there, but they started off as a regular guitar and then guitar and world percussion type things because it was just something a little bit different than the band program. So you didn't have that band geek stigma, or if you don't have the, time and or expertise in showing someone how to play in an orchestra or whatever else, and choir wasn't your gig, then you had something you could go to and learn a couple of cover tunes off that. But as bands right now, and I know Jeremy and I are both in this kind of boat together, it's basically we're becoming dinosaurs. We're becoming that that little thing that you see at the like the monkeys in the cage when you go to the zoo, is that they stop by and they're like, oh, you still do exist, that type of thing. And
like seeing a bebop band.
Yeah, exactly. Is that okay? People still do this type of thing, and it just becomes more apparent as we go along. And myself, I do a podcast as well called the Uptown Tonight podcast, where we basically talk to any entertainer I can find in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and we're definitely over 100 episodes now, and talked to a lot of people, including Mr. Grinsteiner himself a few times on there. So you should go check that out. Uptown Tonight podcast at basically from Tiki Talks all the way up to the Instagrams and everything else, or Uptown Band Fargo, or Uptown, we're a band from Fargo.com. That has the website stuff on there and the podcast stuff on there as well. So, but talking with these people and knowing about 40 years ago that there was 5 trillion bands out there, and again, you played almost every night of the week. You did all sorts of things, and you didn't make a great amount of money, probably the same amount as we make just playing 2 to 3 nights out of the week. But they were there, and now they're starting to wane to the side, as exactly as you says, the bebop band. So you got all these jazz bands coming out, but who's paying for that? Maybe here and there you get a little corporate gig or something, but not much. And then if you're playing popular music, well, popular music's becoming pretty antiquish as well. Is that even a word? Antiquated. Yeah, that's probably the better way of saying it, because you maybe have 2 or 3 people out there now that are making stuff, but it's not really even band orientated anymore. It's all just electronical, whatever, hip hop type stuff put on top of it. There is some things like Harry Styles and this guy does Uptown Funk. Bruno Mars.
Yep.
Bruno Mars. They still have, basically full bands that back them up on everything. But it's few and far between. Every time you go out there and you see a festival now, it's every band you heard of from the 80s into the 90s a little bit, and maybe 2000. And the whole thing of when I was teaching up at the International Music Camp for their rock band, I think it's called Garage Band program up there, is that all the kids would come in, they'd ask for music that was played in the 90s or 80s. That's the stuff they wanted to do. And it took me back, because again, I was in that bubble. I was with the kids, wasn't realizing what was going on out in the world. And there's so much media, so much to consume, that it's so hard to figure out, or not to figure out, but it's so hard for somebody to become some of the top people out there that everyone listens to, so everyone enjoys. So there becomes that aspect as well. So that comes around, is that, I didn't need to have all that academia training in order to do what I'm doing basically today. But is even today what I'm doing, how long is that going to last before that just fizzles out too? And everyone just wants to watch, 3D imagery of Michael Jackson's concerts or whatever else. So That's where I'm at. So you can come out and check me out on Uptown Tonight podcast. We're on every Wednesday night at 6:30. Go live on the YouTubes and such. This week we do have one of our new Uptown members. That is Nick Taylor is going to be on there.
Very
I think
cool.
his last name's Hogginson. And also we got another band started up, me with Grinsteiner, called Pirates on Cassette. Pirate, singular pirate on there. And you can find us all there on Tiki Tacs all the way up to the Instagrams and on Facebook and all that other fun stuff. So go over there, give us a like. We have a few things on there, just me being funny or foolish and whatever else, just having fun with the editing programs that I have. But, we're getting there. We just picked up a new singer, and been in contact with her for the past few days, and we're getting new things set up and whatever else. And I got to talk to you guys all about that anyway, so I won't get into all that business as we're going on there. But Pirate on Cassette, that's definitely going to be a great time. So that's all I got for you there, Mr. Grinsteiner.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Wade.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to getting this episode and sharing your experiences with the world. So I appreciate you taking the time to share that with everybody. And appreciate you just as a person and a fellow musician anyways. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you,
sir.
And so with that, we'll close out this episode of the Weird and Strong podcast. Until next time, stay weird, stay strong.